From the world of AV programming and control with James King, I'm Steve Greenblatt, and this is Ask the Programmer. James, how are you today? I'm looking forward to our conversation and a wonderful guest that we have.
Oh, I'm looking forward to this one, Steve. I'm doing okay, recovering from being sick yesterday, but again, recovering, all good. How are you doing?
Doing well, doing well. I'm sure the show must go on, so it's sick
Always.
time is relative.
Yeah, oh yeah.
We're uh, we're recording this in the summer of 2025, so we're kind of in those times right now where people are likely very busy in the AV industry, and with that, we have a guest that we've been very much looking forward to having on board, and somebody that I've known for some time in different roles, and somebody that is very highly regarded. His name is Jeff Perkins, and he is the Q-SYS Control Curriculum Developer and Trainer. And if you write that down, you'll remember it like I did. Welcome, Jeff.
It is, and thank you for having me. That job title is very long. It's descriptive. It's crazy because, of course, HR has job titles, and QSC has it as one thing, curriculum specialist three. Acuity has it as training manager senior, because of course QSC has been recently acquired by Acuity, which is its own interesting journey that we could talk about if that's where we want to go. Although I think we probably want to talk about training. And but what I put in my email signature is something like what you said: control, QSYS control, curriculum developer and trainer. Because I do a lot of training, and I do a lot of training of the trainer as well as developing curriculum.
Which is one says that you're a busy and important guy, but the truth is that you're not a traditional trainer. You have that background, but tell us a little bit about who you are and where you're coming from, because
Yep.
I know you as a designer and a programmer.
hmm True. My favorite way, I usually give a speech like this at the beginning of class when I teach. And one of the things that I say, because I have three children, and they're pretty much all in that teenage years. And so I've learned how to say things in the cringiest way possible, which is just the best. Now I just lean into it because they make faces. I like to say that I started my career in the AV industry at the turn of the century, which is just the weirdest way to think about that for those of us who remember the turn of the century being not 25 years ago. I have an engineering degree. I have and I stayed in school. Anyway, I started in the AV industry again at the turn of the century, and I started with AMX programming, and I understood it. I loved it. It was fantastic. Because it was basically C, and that was what I had learned when I was in engineering school was C, and it was beautiful, made a lot of sense. Um, I went from there into grad school. I did AV programming. I started grad school and paid the bills by doing AV programming for quite a while. And there came a moment. So Steve knows me from an integrator in the DFW Metroplex. I was in grad school in the DFW Metroplex, and the owner at the time was like, "You need to drop out and come become my Crestron programmer too." And I'm like, I'm not going to drop out of school. I'm going to finish school because I'm on this other trajectory. This is just what I've been doing for the last little while to pay bills. But I loved programming. It's what I was built for. It makes a lot of sense to me. I really, really love it. But I stayed in school, and I wound up becoming I stayed in school to get a master's degree, stayed in school to work on a PhD, and had a second kid. So I got my second DAD instead of my first PhD. And I am so happy that that is the case because, man, I'm so happy to have that second DAD. I now have a third DAD and still no PhD that still is the happiest choice of my life, probably. It ranks up there. Anyway, I stayed in school. I then went and wound up, I taught school for over a decade. I taught math, science, theology, philosophy, 7th through 12th grades. I saw the whole spectrum of life and training and teaching of those things. From there, I had the opportunity to come back to that very same integrator. And when I came back to that very same integrator, the fun things is that that was probably a 15-year gap. Not quite, but pretty close. And so the owner's sons, who were kids when I was there, are now at the place where they were ready to take over the business from the dad. That's that. Anyway, so I came back in at that sort of transition period in that organization's life, and I came back and became the system design manager. And part of being the system design manager was I also wanted to program, because in my mind, being the programmer meant that I really, really understood the consequences of the design. Because so often when you make designs, the designer really doesn't have to suffer the consequences of his decisions. Whereas when I was the programmer, it very much was, oh, you could put these collections of things together and they do kind of sort of work, but boy, does that suck. Don't do that. No, no, no. We're not going to do things that way. We're going to do things this other way. And so I did finally come back around and become a programmer on the Crestron platform. And so while I was the system design manager at this firm, this integrator, we did it all, right? We did bid projects, but we also did our own design build projects. And so I wound up as the in-house programmer, I wound up doing the Crestron projects, the Extron projects, the Q-SYS projects, the Kramer projects, the oh no, the world has ended and there's no supply. Let me go steal the Raspberry Pi off of my son's desk and see if I can make the shades go up and down, kinds of projects. I was there, Gandalf. I was there. I lived it. I did it. Now, of course, you see me today. I am indeed wearing a Q-SYS shirt, and that is a Q-SYS background. Sometime in the middle of the pandemic or right before the pandemic, right, the Q-SYS guys came around, or sorry, the QSC guys, because Q-SYS didn't really exist then. And they're like, we can do control. And as the kids say, okay, bet. And so we started that journey of learning how to do control on the QSC systems platform, because that's how Q-SYS came about. It was QSC systems. That's where I started learning about Lua and how to do things in Q-SYS. And I wound up choosing a side in the manufacturer things. Q-SYS turns out to be my favorite platform. And so that's how I got to Q-SYS. And that's how I got to be in this position of being a curriculum, not just a trainer at Q-SYS, but a curriculum developer at Q-SYS, is because I'm the weirdo. I've been in the classroom. I know how to write curriculum. I know how to speak, hopefully, and to make things clear. I think it's panning out. I think it's working. And at the same rate, I also have been in those shoes. I know what it's like to be the AV programmer. I know what it's like to be standing in a closet at 2 o'clock in the morning, are making a table out of a bunch of spools of wire. Uh, I've been there and it's terrible. And so I take that into account when I write curriculum.
So many good things. Thank you for sharing that. And James and I, and I'm sure our audience have all been shaking their head and giggling a little bit and relating very much to your journey. And
Yeah,
but it is unique in the fact that you can bring so many different facets to what you do right now. Um, Talk a little bit about your approach to training and what inspires you in that regard and because what we found and we've James and I have talked about a lot and I'll let him also chime in is that the training that programmers need isn't necessarily received from one source and we have to really be selective and creative in the way that programmers can be educated.
right. Did you want to say something, James? No?
No, I love hearing your story here. So, like I've always said, it's great when we have a guest. I can sit back and let the experts talk, and I can keep my mouth shut. I
Okay.
love things like that. But yeah, if I find something to chime in on, but like Steve said, we've always talked about education, programming, training, all that stuff, and having an expert on here to talk about that is great. So, as much airtime you need, you got.
Okay, excellent. Um, all right. Sorry, I forgot your question, Steve.
It's your approach to training
Oh yeah.
is a little bit different and the fact that you really look at it from the programmer's shoes
Hmm.
as much as you have to represent your company, you are trying to create the training that you would like to have for yourself. If I could, not that I want to put words in your mouth,
Oh
but that's the
no,
way I interpret it.
those you're not putting words in my mouth. Those words have actually come out of my mouth. So if you've done anything with Q-SYS, from the control side of things, you know that, well, you may know that we used to have a class called Control 201. And Control 201 was it took, oh gosh, how many hours? Like 12 hours to take or something like that. I don't recall, and that doesn't matter. But the idea behind it was basically that, right, we've got scripting, and scripting comes in two flavors. You can either write full line code, which in the Q-SYS platform we say is in the text controller component, or you could use the block controller, which is basically Blockly, where it's visual programming and you know it's Legos and you snap them together and you write your script that way. So we had a class, and it did its job. It accomplished what it set out to do, and what it set out to do was basically give you some training on how to do Lua. Okay, fine. When I started in Q-SYS, I, right, I'm still coming from that. I'm actually an educator background, right? My background is teaching, training. When I was that system design manager, it very much was right, I'm organizing the entire organization, right? The entire integration firm around becoming a training organization, teaching internally, making sure that it makes sense so that, right, I was programming and I was talking to the guys that worked in the shop. I was talking to the commissioning agents, making sure that they understood what I was doing, and talking to the system designers about here's the consequences of your design decisions. Let's make sure that all of this makes sense so that, well, one, so that the organization wins, but also so that I could be in bed at 2 o'clock in the morning, which was really the big idea for me. I had three small children at the time. I didn't want to be working on service calls when I should be asleep, when everyone should be asleep. So Control 201, it had a very narrow goal, and that's what it approached. When I started learning Q-SYS, I did 201. I still had questions. I personally still had questions about how things worked inside of Q-SYS. There were things about Q-SYS controls, the way our buttons work, and we don't have to go down that road, but there was like questions like, why does it, why, and why is this the vocabulary? And let's make things clear. And they're just, those things just weren't. It just wasn't. And so, Steve, you're correct. That when I was hired, it was very much we need to make the next generation of control programming. And part of what that meant was, does 201 make sense still, right? It served a job, but is it really serving what we need it to do? And so I talked to people all around the world, which is one of the fun things about this particular job is I technically, well, at the time we would have said I technically belong to corporate because I'm based I live in Texas. I still talk like this. But QSC, of course, is based in Southern California. And right, I technically belong to the mothership, right? But we have lots of offices around the world. And so I talked to trainers from all around the world about their experiences with 201. And what it came down to was there were sort of two main considerations in that curriculum and the changes we wanted to see in that curriculum. One of them was that it really only addressed how to do Lua, not why to do Lua, not why to do scripting and when to do scripting, and how to like do a Q-SYS project individually or in its totality. So that was in the one hand. The other, and this was my personal experience as well from teaching the class, was we would typically have three kinds of people show up to the class. We would have the guys who were, or gals, that were deathly afraid of opening the text controller because it's the black screen of death. And how do I write syntax? What is this? I want nothing to do with that. Just give me the Lego blocks. Right? So we had 45% of the people only wanted visual programming. We also had 45% of the people that were like, why are you insulting me with Lego blocks? Just give me the black screen of death. She's the dark mistress. She speaks to my soul. Right. So that's 45%, 45%. And what's the 10%? The 10% are the people that I affectionately call Captain DSP, who work in the shop and were promised, they said they'd give me $3 more an hour if I got this Q-SYS programming training and I did some of that Q-SYS control programming here. And I'm here for those $3, dude. And I don't know what it is you're talking about with this block controller or that black screen of death. I mean, I'm into death metal, but I don't know about that stuff. So we had this question about, who is this class aimed at? We also had this question of, does it scratch all the itches that we need it to scratch? And so I got to go to the drawing board and dream up with, and I'm going to give credit to my AET back in the day. So at Q-SYS, we have a thing called the different sales regions have different experts in those regions that help with like sales support, but also programming, etc. Mine was Kevin Rodas. And if you guys know about Kevin Rodas is another guy that you should talk to. Every year he does bigger and better with his Christmas lights. But he was my guy back in the day. And by now this is getting pretty far back in the history of Q-SYS, of when all of this stuff started. He had created, it's a class, and we're going to call it a class. And he called it, what did he call it? Control and UCI fundamentals. So I took that idea that he had, which was, let's create a class that actually helps you create a Q-SYS project, but it was solely done using so technically I work in the marketing department, which is fun and interesting as a trainer. But it kind of makes sense if you think about it. To all of my friends in the marketing department who's listening, right? I'm going to hit the words, okay? No code, low code, full code, okay? So his class was a no code class. It was let's build an actual boardroom kind of project that you might actually be asked to do. Build a UCI, make use of some CSS, wire the things together, Captain DSP style, and make a working system. And when you were done, you had a working system. Brilliant, brilliant idea. So what I did was I took that germ of an idea and then I fleshed it out. And I made a block controller only version of that class. I made a full scripting version of that class. We also upgraded right. So we made 3 versions of the class, no code, low code, full code. I also made a emulator. Basically, instead of pretending that you were making the shades go up and down, instead of pretending that you were sending commands to a lighting controller to make the lights go up and down, etc. I actually made the old Disney style animation, cellular animation built into your student file. Built into the student file is a fully animated room. You're basically sitting in the back of the room. It's been fully commissioned. All the wires have been pulled and terminated correctly. You're not sitting back there fussing with changing out pins 2 and 3 on the serial connection, et cetera, right? All that stuff, right? You're basically sitting in the back of a working room and you're working through the programming scope of work, right? I've got to make the lights, the lights go up and down. And it's a fader, and I got presets, and I have to open a TCP connection. I've got relay control of the shades. I want to turn on and off the televisions. I want to be able to route video independently to the 2 of them. I need volume control in the room, right? You're walking away with a full working system, but as you're doing the training, every time you bring one of those little subsystems online, you can poke the button and see it animated in real time. And for me, that was if you take the class, if you take any of the 3 versions of the class, and this is the beautiful thing, it works in no code. It works in low code. It works in full code because Q-SYS affords you all 3 of those opportunities. You can see the stuff work. You're not just pretending, and it's in your file. It means it's at your home, and you don't need hardware. You just hit F6 on your computer and it works. Okay, so you can watch the videos on YouTube. You can hit F6 and see that it works at home, in your underwear, whatever. Like today, right? I'm wearing a shirt up top. Who knows what I have on down below? I know they're both laughing, but that's how that works. Okay, you're right. Welcome to the future where we only have to dress from the top up. Man, when the world ended, things got weird, right?
Well, we're trying to make programmers have a little bit of a better image. So
Yes.
we'll presume that they do have pants on or
I
something
do.
I
I
like
do.
shorts.
I
I like
do.
shorts.
I do. I do. I do.
They-
But this is also part of stepping into the Q-SYS tradition of being snarky and making jokes. All right. So I believe where I was headed with that very long story is that when when I was afforded the opportunity to create this curriculum, the heartbeat that I had was the heartbeat of both a, a, a teacher with more than a decade of experience, but also of being an AV programmer who who really, well, here's my contention. AV programmers are smart. They just might not know all the things of computer science. And so where, right, the heartbeat that I had in this curriculum was for the AV programmer. Let's start the class assuming 0. And let's build our way through what is more or less an actual project instead of just disassociated exercises. Let's work through an actual project that you might be called on to actually do for real hard money. Let's step through that, and let's start at first principles, and let's move our way along the curve of how to, like, why do we do things? How do we do things? How do we think about a number of things? So in particular, I'm going to talk about what's called the advanced class. The advanced class is the full scripting Lua class, and it's the one that I primarily teach when I teach these days. We're working on getting other trainers up to speed so that we can have the classes come very, very regularly. All right. But what I mean from a philosophical standpoint is we start with nothing. We start with, you've got to have a user interface. So let's start by creating, right? Because this is also an introduction to how to use our software, right? But it's also a philosophical journey of, you're creating a user interface. What does it mean to create a user interface? Well, it means that you're now immediately in the position of curating user experience. Because just because you can put a button on that thing doesn't mean that you should. Also, where do you put this button on the page? Because it matters where you put buttons on the page. Also, how big should these buttons be? Can they be different sizes? Should they be the same size, right? All kinds of, like, the first day feels really slow because we're working through big philosophical ideas that, if you've never done any of this, they're the things you ought to be thinking about. Also, if you've been doing this since the turn of the century, these are also things you need to be thinking about, because dadgummit, race cars are so fun, but let NASCAR be NASCAR. Okay? Don't make your user interface look like NASCAR. James is dying laughing right now, because he's probably seen user interfaces that got a button in every different color and it looks like a NASCAR jersey. Okay, so we start at first principles. We talk through those things. We put 3 nav buttons on the page because we're going to have, right, 3 different things that we're going to interact with. And when we start with just literally brute force, right? Push button, it needs to do this, it needs to do this, it needs to do this. And then we stop and say, okay, well, what are the other 2 buttons going to look like? Well, it's going to, right, copy, paste, change it up, look, see that it works. Cool, we can see that it works. And then it's like, oh, but it's kind of dumb, ain't it? Well, what do you mean it's kind of dumb? Well, it's kind of dumb to copy and paste and it, like, be 95% the same. What should you do instead? And then we introduce the idea of functions. And then we rewrite and we use functions. And then we introduce the idea of, well, congratulations, you're now writing code. Writing code is an iterative improvement process. What you're paid for is working code. The owner, They very rarely ever look at the code. They just want to know that when you push the button, it does what it's supposed to do. Our job, our first job, is to write working code. Our second job, because we're professionals and we care, is to improve that code. And as budget and time allows, we look for places to iteratively improve, right? So the class is built around moving from first principles to really advanced principles. Like, so on that day one, we put 3 buttons and we say, we use we use a global variable that says, oh, I pushed button number 1. Oh, I pushed button number 2. Oh, I pushed button number 3. And then when you run the functions, it looks to see what is the state of those global variables. This is very basic. It's not that great. Okay. But in terms of iterating from first principles, push button, do thing to, push button, run functions that do things based off of what button you press to, run functions based off of passing an argument into those functions you're going to call, to, actually putting all of those buttons into an array of controls so that you can actually write all of the event handlers inside of a for loop so that your code is actually only this big. When you can add, 99 pages and it's all the same because it's just inside of a for loop and the code is writing itself, right? That power curve of how to go from first principles to writing for loops using arrays of controls is the journey that I'm seeking to take students on. And I want them to be here, but I recognize that I need to take them on a journey from here to here. And to me, this is part of my love letter to AV programmers, is I want to bring them along so that they understand first principles every time we make one of those iterative improvements so that the journey never ends. They're always getting better. It's always further up and always further in. But what is it never? What is it never? It's never just copy what I did. It's never here's how to do it. It's always, why are we doing this? What is the goal? What principles are we using to accomplish this? The worst kind of training is simply follow the leader, because I'm just trying to type as fast as you. I don't actually know what's happening. That means everybody's wasting their time. I haven't learned anything. And that's what I can't abide. And that's what, that's why if you take any of the classes that I have anything to do with, hopefully those sort of philosophical ideas, both, right, the fancy term is pedagogical ideas, as well as the programming ideas. That's why they're there. I'm thinking of that first year AV tech that's trying to build a career, because not everybody goes to college and not everybody has to go to college. And I'm a guy that went to college, and I love you guys. I want you to be successful and awesome and know what you're talking about. And that's what we're trying to do at Q-SYS for you guys. So I know one of the questions that often gets asked when it comes to manufacturer training is this just a sales push? Well, I mean, they do pay the bills. They do. But also, so again, when it comes to training that I'm responsible for, content, curriculum that I'm responsible for, of course, this is like, I got to talk about the Q-SYS environment. This is what I'm trying to teach you. I am trying to teach you how to accomplish projects in the Q-SYS environment. I'm also trying to teach you transferable universal concepts that you can use in other places in other times. Even if that's in a Crestron system, even if that's in an Extron system, even if that's in an AMX system, even if that's in any other system, there are certain things that are universal. And I'm trying not to waste your time. I'm trying to give you good and wonderful gifts. I'm not trying to gatekeep knowledge from you. I'm trying to give it to you as easily and as quickly and as thoughtfully as possible. Now, I mess up. I overlook things sometimes. I don't make everything clear, but um, but my personal manner of teaching is I really do try to do it narratively. I try to bring you on a journey, but ask you questions every step of the way so that it's, you know, what is our goal? What are we trying to do? We're trying to, open a TCP socket so we can hear back from the lighting controller. And I got to tell you how the socket works and how to work with the buffer and how to extract data from the buffer so you can go parse it and think about all the things you got to do along the way. Like, I need to check for nils because they're radioactive hand grenades that blow everything up. If right, we guys know what nils are and how they blow things up. Um, right, but if you don't know about those hand grenades, you step on them. I guess that would make it a landmine. I'm mixing my metaphors, but you get what I'm saying. All right, I've talked for a minute. You guys should ask me another question. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep teetering off in different directions.
This is fantastic, and we're gonna wrap this one up, but we're gonna keep you here for another episode because you have so many great things to say, and we have so many more things that we could ask. But in interest of time, it's a good time for us to um, wrap this episode up. So, Jeff, can you tell us how people can get in touch with you, how they can learn more about what you're doing at Q-SYS, and if you stay tuned, Jeff will have some more to share in the next episode.
Okay. Well, first, thank you for having me on the first episode. James said 7 words, and I said 4,082. It's okay. That's fine.
They were all very, very, very good. So we have no complaints.
No. So you can find me. The best place to find me is at Q-SYS. Okay. The LMS is training.qsys.com. That's where you can sign up for all of the courses, etc. And from there, that's a great place to find everything. Okay, you also can reach me at Q-SYS Communities. Everybody probably knows how to do that. Otherwise, communities.qsys.com. I'll make sure I get that correct because they'll shoot me otherwise. But communities, okay, with a C, not a Q, because that would have been fun. But and then lastly, I am on, technically I'm on Twitter, although I don't really do anything on Twitter, at Perkins_Jeff. But mostly you can reach me at my email, jeff.perkins@qsc.com.
Fantastic. And that's developers.qsc.com for the communities. And our friend Adrian, if I didn't make that clear, he would
Yes.
have words with me.
Adrian, I did mention communities. You see, I just click the button every day. I don't actually type in the URL. So
Yes.
my bad.
So,
okay. But you got the mention. Okay. You got the mention.
And Adrian Avalon has been on our shows before, and he's a good friend of the show and somebody that you should check out as well. And he's well, the master behind the Q-SYS developers community, and it's a great resource.
He fancies himself as the mayor.
The mayor, yes. James, I know that you have been listening and taking this in, and any final thoughts and anything you wanted to share and ways to get in touch with you?
Yeah, this is, again, as I said earlier, it's great to sit back and let the expert talk. And where I don't have to talk, it's awesome. Because I'm sure people are tired of hearing me talk. But a couple of things that Jeff said. One, I've been a student in the class where I am the top 45 and there's someone in the bottom 45 and you're talking to the other 10. And I remember clear as day, like I was grasping the concept of the 101 class, and the last day, like one guy who was sitting next to me came in and he just put his hand down on the table and go, "Fail me now, I already told my boss to pay the programmer where the hell they want because this is too hard. And I was like, where do you work? like I'll come work for you because this was easy in my mind. So yeah, it's great when someone can really help bring people along so that you don't have those divides. Um, you're going to always have those divides, but if you can bring them down, that you're not so many, that'd be great. And then the one thing Jeff mentioned that, our jobs are to break code and develop code and all that stuff. I would actually say he kind of hit it on there is our number one job is not to write code. Like if we have three buttons and we're writing the same lines for those three buttons, our job is not to write those three lines 9 times. Like, so our job is not to write code, it is to make our lives easier. If you want to get a hold of me, Google me, you'll find me.
Wonderful. And as James said, there's so many things that we could point to that Jeff brought up. And I think that what's really refreshing is the idea that everything that he's talking about is really done with the programmer in mind and is not necessarily done with the manufacturer in mind, the employer, the boss. It's done to make programmers more effective, and I think that's really very valuable. And one of the reasons that we have this podcast is to help programmers find more resources. And so please reach out to Jeff, reach out to Kevin, Rotis that Jeff mentioned. So many different ways, and I think that it's refreshing to see the fundamentals being taught that can be applied because so many people are sent to training and expected the next day to be able to write a program and go put what they've learned to use. Now, it's important to use what you've learned, but many trainings that there's a gap between the theory and the practical. And I think that what Jeff is talking about is closing that gap significantly. For me, you can reach me at Steve Greenblatt on social media. My company, Control Concepts, is a supporter of this podcast, and we develop the plugins that Jeff mentioned and modules and drivers that help programmers so that they have confidence in integrating certain products with their control programs. And that can be found at controlconcepts.net. And this podcast is available in a video form on YouTube, so you can see a lot of the animated discussion that Jeff provided, as well as the audio version. So check them both out. We also have a community called on LinkedIn called Ask the Programmer, and we ask that you join us there so that we can continue these discussions and have our guests check out some of the feedback that they receive from the things that they discussed. And it's a great way for us to continue the conversations. And we wanted your feedback and we want you to be part of this. So please let us know if you have questions, if you want to be a guest, or if you want to share some ideas that we can discuss about in the future. So until next time, this has been Ask the Programmer.